If your lawnmower won't start coming out of storage, 9 times out of 10, it's a $0 super easy fix that involves taking this little carburetor bowl off and the jet that's underneath it. We got to clean it. Stick with me. I'll show you how easy this is so you can get that mower up and running in no time. Before you take that nut off or start moving it, you're going to want to take the air filter off. Usually it's real simple. Mine's just a twist design. Some of them snap on, some of them screw on. And while you got it out, make sure the air filter looks good. This one, well, it doesn't look great, but you know what? It's not all black and stuff on the inside. It's pretty new from last season. So I think the air filter's good. That's not the reason this won't start. It's very likely this carburetor issue right here, and I can already see all the gunk around it. So if any of that gunk made it in there, it's clogging the gas passages so it can't run. I can get it to start on starter fluid, but that's because it's bypassing this whole system and just shooting starting fluid straight into the engine, and that gets it to fire up. For about 2 seconds it'll run, and then it goes ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Here's the trick to fixing that. All right, first thing you want to do is you want to grab some type of pliers like this, pinch off the gas line. If you don't know where your gas line is, follow the gas tank. This is my gas tank, and right at the bottom of it, it's going to be a gas line. I can see it right in here. I'm just going to pinch that with pliers so that more gas doesn't flow to this while I'm working on it. Otherwise, you're just going to have gas pouring out of this thing. Good idea to have some rags handy. Probably want some gloves on. I'm going to do that real quick. All right, got my gloves on, and there's a nut under here. Like I said, it's a 1/2 inch on this one. Most of them are. This nut is upside down, so it's not righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It's kind of the opposite way from the way you're staring at it. So get on that thing and twist it just a hair, and then it's going to start coming out. You can see right away I've got gas on my hand. That's just the gas that is left in that carburetor bowl. It's going to drain a little bit. Don't be scared. It's not going to drain a whole gallon of gas on you. But I do recommend you have gloves on. So this is the culprit usually, this thing right here. But I'm also going to take off the bowl and give that a good cleaning. All right. Well, I can kind of see the problem already. You see what's inside that bowl? All that stuff is trying to get sucked in. All that crud is trying to get sucked in this little jet valve. And what we're going to do is we're going to clean that little jet valve out. Okay, there's a hole in the top of the bolt, and then there's a hole on the sides. If any of that stuff in the pan there blocks these jet valves, it's not going to get any gas into the engine. It's going to stall out. So I'm going to show you how to clean one of these. First thing I'm going to do is just kind of wipe it off and inspect it. See what we're looking at here. All right, so now it's not covered in gas. But I can kind of already see, it's going to be hard to pick up on camera, but I can see where there is an issue on this jet hole right there. And the best and easiest trick to use, get yourself a safety pin, pop that thing open, and get to work. All you need to do is start poking that thing through the hole. And what you're trying to do is just dislodge any small things blocking it, any gunk in there. And if it's real bad, if this thing's real clogged up, you might need to soak it in something overnight. Just make sure it's something that can handle gasoline. All right, so that one feels pretty wide open. That hole on the top feels pretty good. You don't want anything sticking in there. You don't want your tool to get stuck either. So make sure you have the appropriate thing. My paper clips were too big, so the safety pin worked because it's a little pointier. All right. So I would say that thing's pretty darn clean and at least poked through. All right, now we're going to clean the inside of this. I'm just going to wipe it out first because there's so much junk around it. This thing was covered in this type of looking stuff before I took it off. I decided to clean it so it wouldn't get everywhere. You can already see how much is falling off of it. That all stuff is falling in or off of this thing. So we're going to clean that off. The bottom was nasty too. All right. What you don't want is any of that getting in the carburetor. So I'm going to take a little bit of time and really clean this thing out. You can see the rim of it's got some corrosion or some stuck, jungle butter or whatever that is. And if you need to clean the carburetor and you don't have carb cleaner, I've heard some people using WD-40, and then you can also use brake cleaner. Brake cleaner is safe for carburetors, so you can do this as well. All right, just going to spray a little bit of brake cleaner in there. Not much. And heads up, brake cleaner is really strong stuff. You should do this either outside or in a very well-ventilated area. With gloves and glasses on if you're spraying this stuff hard, because if you get it on you, it can be very dangerous. All right, I think that's probably clean enough to get it started. The rim of this thing has some corrosion, but I'm not worried about that right now. I'm just seeing if this engine will start up for the year. All the junk that's fallen off of this area, all of that would have been a major problem in the carburetor, and the carburetor had some of that in it, so that's not good. Another thing you might want to spray with the brake cleaner is you can spray down in that hole and then through the sides there to try to get any last bits of grossness out of it. Careful with this because you're spraying a lot of pressure into a small spot. So cover your eyes, cover your mouth, cover your nose. Helps if you don't hit the sprayer as hard as it can go, because it will go everywhere. All right, and I can physically see the brake cleaner running through the holes, so I'm happy about that. And I am going to just reinstall this and give it another shot here. It's helpful if you remember the orientation of the pan. Mine has a little bit of a recessed spot on it. I'm not entirely sure if this is the direction it was, but I'll look that up in a minute. All right, heads up, you need to go just over about finger tight on these. This is just a little thin piece of metal, so if you go really hard on that, you are going to strip it and break it. Don't want to do that now, do you? You don't want no strippers and breakers. Or do you? All right, that's about where it's starting to give me resistance. I'm going to give it just like a 1/8 of a turn there. All right, that's tight. That's good to go. Like you can see, hey, this saved me quite a bit. That's a lot of gas that came out of there. Oh, don't forget you got this pinched off right now, so now you can let the gas back through. Before you try to start it, make sure you take your hose clamp off of there so you can get gasoline into the carburetor. And also, just a heads up, you don't have much gasoline flowing through the carb right now because we just blocked it off. So I left the air filter off. I'm going to spray some starting fluid in there and then give it a shot, see what we get. You don't need much starting fluid, usually a couple seconds if that. That ought to do it. Ooh, it wants it. All right, and if that wouldn't have started it, if it wasn't the carb trick that I just showed you, cleaning that under there, it would be the spark plug probably would be fouled out, which is really easy to change on a lawnmower. I've got a video for that. Or it could be that you've just got really bad gas in there, and that usually will let you start still on starting fluid. You just got to keep spraying it in there, and then once it starts sucking in the bad gas through the carburetor, it'll clog out on you. And don't forget, you might need a new air filter. If this thing's super clogged, then obviously the engine's choking itself dead and it won't start. And I guess the fourth thing to mention would be if it still won't start, we probably should have checked your oil before you tried starting it, but it might be time for an oil change or just super low on oil. You might need to add some. And I've got a video on how to change oil on lawnmowers as well. Check that out. Hey, it was that easy. Now you know how to start a lawnmower that won't start. It's usually, I would say 90% of the time, something stuck inside of here that just needs to be cleaned out, because when they sit in storage forever, all the gravity works to get all the junk down in the bottom of there. And the bottom of that is where all the gas gets pulled up through and shot into the engine so it can run. So if that's clogged, you're not going to get it running. And usually you can get it running a little bit on starter fluid and it dies off, and then that's usually the culprit to let you know that that thing needs to be cleaned out, because this bypasses all that, shoots it straight through the air intake all the way into the engine, and it'll fire up for about 3 seconds, but once it burns through all the starting fluid, well, then it stalls out on you. Been running on just a couple of minutes time, and honestly it was just the crud that was inside of there. Cost me $0 total, and just a little spritz of this afterward, and we're good to go. Now it's ready for the season. And this will work on any lawnmower that's similar in makeup. Doesn't have to be a lawn boy, doesn't have to be this easy mulch style, doesn't have to be a very similar looking one. It just has to have basically a carburetor, which most small engines do.
This will work on any